Fellow Ghanaians, good morning. So this morning, let's start with a question that I've been asking myself for many years that I've sat in the press section of the Public Accounts Committee, doing my work as a parliament and watching them do their work. And I want you to sit with this question before we go any further. If a committee of parliament has been meeting for decades, hearing evidence of corruption, embezzlement, theft, and the brazen misapplication of public funds, then produced reports, made recommendations, kept summoning officials, and grilled them on national TV. By the end of the day, not a single person has gone to prison, not a single meaningful prosecution has followed, and not a single cedi of stolen public money has been recovered through that work of that committee in any way. Can we point to this and say, look, this is what accountability looks like? What exactly is the point of a committee like that, and why are we still pretending that it serves the purpose for which it was created? Fellow Ghanaians, the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament exists in theory to be the mechanism through which the Auditor General's reports are interrogated, through which people cited in those reports are made to answer for what they did with public money, and through which Parliament as a whole receives clear and actionable accounts of the state of financial management in this country. That is the theory. This is what the Constitution and the Standing Orders of Parliament envisioned when they established this committee and gave it that mandate. And then there is the reality, which is what those of you and those of us who spent years watching this committee at work have been forced to confront over and again, with a mixture of frustration and disbelief and a growing conviction that we are all participating in an elaborate performance that was never designed to produce consequences. Just theater. Fellow Ghanaians, I started following the Public Accounts Committee when Kweku Agyeman was chairman. I'm a bit young. And many of you have been watching it for even longer than that, watching it across administrations and across committee compositions and chairmanships. And the story has always been the same. The Auditor General produces a report. The report contains findings of corruption, of embezzlement, of misapplication of funds, of procurement processes manipulated and contracts inflated, public money diverted into private pockets with casualness that should horrify all of us as Ghanaians who pay taxes and watch public projects collapse halfway through construction because the money ran into an unexplained way. The committee then sits. The session are broadcast live on national television, taking up prime time, beamed into all homes across the country, so that we can all sit together and watch officials explain their malfeasance or deny it or offer justifications that would embarrass even a school child. And then the committee produces its reports. Then nothing happens. Fellow Ghanaians, I want to be precise about that nothing, because it is important to be precise, because the people who defend this committee will say that it serves an accountability function, that the public exposure itself is a form of consequence, that the recommendations it makes have value even if they are not always acted upon. And I want to address that argument. The former chairman of this committee, James Klucha-Aveji, a man who chaired that Public Accounts Committee for 8 years, told us once himself that the committee's recommendations to the Attorney General for individuals to be prosecuted, those individuals who were cited in that report, were not even transmitted to the Attorney General. They were not acted upon, they were not reviewed, they were not rejected, they were not even considered and found wanting. They were not transmitted. The letters were not being sent from Parliament. The referrals were not being made. 8 years of a committee, and the most basic follow-through mechanism that a committee possessed was not functioning. And we are supposed to maintain confidence in that institution. Fellow Ghanaians, and then this week, something happened at the Public Accounts Committee that crystallized for me everything that is wrong with how this body operates, and everything that explains why it produces so little of value despite consuming so much of our parliamentary time and our national attention. The committee, as you know now, is seized with a matter of about 68 billion Ghana cedis in government arrears, which itself is a figure so staggering that it deserves its own extended conversation about how a government accumulates that level of debt to its own contractors and suppliers, and for what, especially when we are told that those are all fictitious. A member of the committee, MP Eric Edem Agbana, wanted to probe further into an issue the committee was examining, which is to say he was doing exactly what a member of the Public Accounts Committee is supposed to do, which is ask the hard questions and pursue the evidence wherever it leads. The committee chairperson, Abena Osei-Asare, will have none of that. Instead of allowing that line of questioning to proceed, she scolded him, called him a young man in a tone, in a manner that was unmistakably designed to put him in his place and shut down his inquiry before it went somewhere uncomfortable. A sitting member of parliament elected by constituents, exercising his legitimate function on a parliamentary committee, being referred to as a young man by the chair in an attempt to silence him. And to compound the insult, his own ranking member, a member of his own party who should have had his back, will not defend him. Fellow Ghanaians, that moment, for those of you who've watched, deserves to be examined because what it reveals is the internal culture of a committee that has lost its purpose. A committee genuinely committed to accountability would have a chairperson who will encourage deeper questioning, who will understand that the more rigorous you probe the evidence, the more useful the committee's output becomes. A committee genuinely committed to accountability would have its members and protect each other's right to ask difficult questions, regardless of what those questions might unearth or whose comfort they might cause. Discomfort, I should say. What we saw instead was a chairperson using the authority of the chair not to facilitate scrutiny, but to suppress it. And a committee culture so comfortable with its own ineffectiveness that a member pursuing his mandate was treated as an inconvenience rather than an asset that he was. Fellow Ghanaians, I have sat through the years of these sessions as a journalist in Parliament. I have watched the evidence pile up, hearing after hearing, session after session. Then the years go by. I have watched officials who should have been walking out of those committee rooms in handcuffs directly into the custody of the police, instead walk out to their vehicles and drive home and return to their offices and continue their careers without any interruption. I've watched the Auditor General's report document the same categories of financial misconduct in the same institutions year after year because the previous year's findings produce no consequences that will deter the next year's misconduct. And I've come to the conclusion that a system designed to produce accountability that consistently produces none is not a system that needs reform. It is one that must be abolished and replaced. Fellow Ghanaians, the solution is not complicated, and it does not require the invention of new institutions or the importation of models from other countries. It requires the political will to amend the Constitution and restructure the flow of accountability in a way that connects the audit finding directly to legal consequence. When the Auditor General completes an audit and identifies financial misconduct, that report should go directly to the Attorney General. That has a dedicated, properly resourced team of prosecutors and investigators whose sole mandate is to examine those findings, recover the funds, and where recovery is warranted, also prosecute where prosecution is warranted. Not recommend prosecutions. Not what we see with Public Accounts Committee, where letters are not even being sent. In addition to the existing powers of the Auditor General to disallow and surcharge, we need a system in which people who steal public money know with certainty that the audit is the beginning of a legal process, not a television appearance that will make them popular, but from which they will remain or emerge unscathed. Public Accounts Committee, in its current form, is a blood pressure mailing institution. It raises your blood pressure. You get angry. It documents your outrage, but then it changes nothing. We deserve a better democracy in which the evidence of corruption is gathered meticulously and then filed away. We deserve a system in which that evidence leads somewhere, in which accountability is the word that we can use to describe a committee like that. Not one that sits prime time and then nothing happens. So fellow Ghanaians, hopefully we can see some change with what we are seeing now. It's been decades of a Public Accounts Committee that has not led to anything. Just a waste of public time and resources. Good morning, fellow Ghanaians.